I didn't poop for a long time, so they made me keep a poop journal to make sure I didn't have any digestive problems. Former teens who went to wilderness camps, therapeutic boarding schools and other troubled teen programs, what were your experiences? I ran away from home a lot when I was young. Eventually my parents sent me to this super religious detention home in Louisiana. The first day there, I was stripped to my underwear and t-shirt and locked in a closet. I had a coffee can with some pine oil in it to piss in, and a mattress on the floor with one blanket and no pillow. The light switch was outside the closet, so I had no control over the light, day or night. The door had holes drilled into it about head high, and they hung a tape recorder on the door from the outside that played nothing but hellfire and brimstone preachers and church services 8 hours a day. I was allowed out twice a day to poop and once every other day to shower, but that was it for the first 3 weeks. When I finally got put into the general population, I made it about a week before I managed to run away, but they caught me in Dallas and sent me right back. I was locked in the closet again for another 2 weeks. But then shortly after that the state came in and shut the whole place down for abuse and neglect. It was utter and complete hell. Beatings and Jesus, 24/7. I can't even begin to describe the conditions or the stereotypical low IQ deep south morons running the place. I've been told I should write a book about my experiences there, but F it. What's done is done and most of those people are dead now anyway. Good riddance, says I. I went to a wilderness program, then a residential treatment center. In the end, it was good for what was going on in my life, but it was a roller coaster, raging out at being sent away one moment to being awed by nature in the next in the wilderness program, playing silly games with similar aged teens, to feeling trapped behind tall metal gates, surrounded by large staff at the residential treatment center. I learned a lot, I healed, I had some wild moments, and wished I had kept in touch with other people who were in my group. I wonder what they are doing now. Did they make it? There were pictures on the wall of the art room of people who had graduated, and a therapist was having a heart-to-heart with us. Told the group to look up, then told us a good percentage of those people were dead. They relapsed. They got back with abusers. They killed themselves. It hit me in the gut. Life's hard after treatment. You've been taught a lot, then you are thrown back into your old life, and you have to use the skills for real. It's never as simple as the books explain it. Second Nature and Vista, in case any fellow alums are on Reddit. Was sent to a Marine-style boot camp for troubled teens. I was sent there because I was an a-hole towards my parents. Discovered upon arrival I was the only person sent there who was not in trouble with the law for assault, robbery, or drug possession, and I was made platoon leader of a bunch of kids who would probably end up in juvie after the camp. Fun times, would recommend for the amount of beatings, butt chewing, and gayness that went on there. Went to Dundee Ranch Academy when I was 15. I am 32 now. It was shut down by the embassy for child abuse and living conditions, among other things. I was there for a year and I still have nightmares of being trapped or jailed and other triggers. Sucks. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I did the Northwest Youth Conservation Corporation. It is not exactly a troubled teens program, but I was put in an interesting situation. I joined because it seemed like a fun way to spend a summer outdoors, doing some hard but worthwhile work in the wilderness, and make some money to buy a home-built PC gaming rig. I knew another person joining for the 6 weeks and it just seemed like a normal teenager summer thing. For the most part it was. Usually the crews are 5 guys and 5 girls. They did not have enough girls, so I got put on the all-guys crew. The all-guys crew had what seemed like mostly troubled kids and a few outright dangerous kids. We also got all the hardest projects and worked our butts off. Still loved every minute of it and reflect upon it fondly. If you are ever walking the trail along the coast to Cannon Beach in Oregon, I helped build some of it. My father lost custody of me for domestic violence and I got scooped up by CPS and put into the group home system. He got custody back a couple of months later and I ended up running away. They sent me to a place called Vision Quest, which was a place with troublemakers, but not that bad. The thing that was bad was that there wasn't any food. I was eating little single serving cups of cream cheese. Ended up running from there with another dude, and when we got picked up, I ended up in a residential treatment facility, mostly because they didn't know what to do with me since I didn't earn any jail time along the way. That place was full of mostly Native American kids. Some of them were from rival gangs. The violence was pretty bad. Midnight beatdowns, gang fights, racial violence, sexual abuse, etc. The people running it really seemed to mean well and were actually pretty fair about seeing what really happened versus everyone gets punished, no matter what, despite what the other kids were like. It was the first time anyone really told me that it was my family that was wrong and to just focus on the program and work towards an independent living program, which I did. Went to Discovery Academy in Provo, Utah for 2 years, until my parents went bankrupt and the school kicked me out. They also refused to release my transcripts, so I ended up having to get a GED because I was technically 2 years behind. This place had some amazing tools for parents with troubled kids. They had goons that would fly to your home and take your child out of their bed in the middle of the night and escort them to Provo. They had comfortable rooms that were probably 4 by 12 with no doors, that you got to stand in all day in nothing but your underwear with a counselor guard outside. Hazing and bullying were essential to the therapy. An attempted suicide in your room was an indicator you were going to succeed there and generate them revenue until you were 18. It had decent moments, but there was so much misery, so much Mormon indoctrination, and so many abuses of power over the students. I was in a very odd Christian counseling for a week, following my grandfather trying to kill me for being gay. It was basically the counselor asking questions about my father, then immediately saying, "You are not gay, your father was never around and you are chasing that affection." The thing was, I had already experienced a lot of stuff from my abusive childhood, sexual, physical, all of it, so I brushed it off pretty easily. It was so funny watching her smile when I would ask questions about the Bible, because some of those stories are fascinating. It was like an on-off switch to counselor's brain about Bible and God good, and anything else bad. Both my parents were addicts and having to learn to pick apart their expressions to what kind of mood they would end up on was easy by the time I was 15. Unfortunately, it also got me to bury my emotions and never process the trauma. I was diagnosed PTSD in 2011, underwent therapy that changed my life. I didn't want to believe it at first, but man, had my life and myself changed so much thanks to PTSD therapy. Sorry for the long post. Stoned and kind of in a reflective mood at the moment. Got the poop repeatedly beat out of me at a Mormon boarding school in Provo, Utah. Almost everyone there was kept on incredibly high doses of antipsychotics to keep us in line, and so we couldn't fight back. When we did, there was getting beat, strapped to a table, injected with drugs like Haldol, and tossed naked into a concrete cell. School was a joke there, and didn't actually bother to teach anyone anything. And the therapists, well, what they and the other employees deserve probably isn't allowed to be said on here. Those that have been know what I'm talking about. Basically, the whole experience was rather quite unpleasant. In 2008, after repeat trips to various mental hospitals in the Northeast, after a severe depressive episode, I was woken up in the middle of the night by 2 guys who told me I was going on a trip. I should add that at this point in my life I had been arrested repeatedly for things like assault, vandalism, disorderly conduct, affray, truancy, and other troubled kid behavior. Well, I put up a fight and was promptly put in cuffs and walked out of my house by these 2 guys. and my father. An hour later I was on an airplane to Salt Lake City to a residential treatment center or evaluation facility run by Mormons. Intake felt like jail. I was asked to strip naked in a cold shower room, it's February, and told to cover myself in lice shampoo and squat and cough. I had to sit there for 10 minutes for the shampoo to do its thing, while these two guys eyed me up and down. I was allowed a quick 5-minute cold shower before I was escorted to an exam room. A nurse asked questions and made notations about all my tattoos and scars. She didn't believe half of what I told her and obviously wrote that in her notes. Heading onto the unit was interesting. I wasn't allowed out of my room for 2 days until I was done with the intake process. Still, other kids there found ways to communicate with me despite a staff member sticking their head in our rooms every 5 to 10 minutes. Once I was out onto the unit, I met kids from all over the US that came from many different traumatic backgrounds and effed up experiences from other facilities. I heard about the wilderness programs in the South quite a bit. Most of the kids were like me, depressed drug users that went through some things in life and didn't handle it well. Some were victims of sexual abuse, etc. Onto the horror stories. A 12-year-old patient was brought in and shared a room with an 18-year-old guy who was truly weird. He was in there for trying to kill his father with a hammer, and he had an obsession with black metal and drawing musicians in paint, battle armor, etc. I woke up to screaming one night and heard the staff members struggling with someone. Both those patients were gone the next day. Turned out the black metal guy beat the younger kid and was raping him. Next one. Meds were big in this place, especially antipsychotics. We didn't have a choice in what we took and were forced to get our meds from a nurse ratchet type at 7:30 AM then sit in the day room until breakfast. A good chunk of us were on Seroquel due to having a history of aggressive behavior. A picture I still have clear in my head is that group of kids including myself sitting in the day room drooling on ourselves and being screamed at by staff for dozing off while waiting. After a tough couple of days when I found out I was going to be stuck there for a year and possibly move across the street to another Mormon facility, I woke up in a foul mood and reacted to a staff member telling me to wake up. I sucker punched him and was promptly restrained and dragged to an isolation room. This isolation room was completely tiled and big enough for them to drag my mattress in. There were paper signs on the wall with Mormon inspirational texts and only one fluorescent light. I was upped on my meds to be heavily sedated and left in this room for 3 days with a staff member sitting in a chair watching me 24/7. I got out 2 smiles from the other patients who had been in the same place in the past. There's many other stories like people on my unit making alcohol, checking meds and overdosing, etc. But those 3 stand out. I don't know where everyone is. Never stayed in contact really. One girl I gave my phone number to hidden in a book. Her father lived not far from me and I told her to hit me up if she moved in with him. She was actually in there for smuggling oxys across the Tijuana border in her snatch apparently. She and I got along. She hit me up a year later telling me she was living in my area and I helped her get some heroin. She hung around for a while then moved. Never heard from her again. This was long-winded but it feels good to talk about. The experiences at these facilities did not help me, and if anything made my life worse and more complicated. The mental health system for youths is a joke. Went to Dundee Ranch Academy when I was 15. I am 32 now. It was shut down by the embassy for child abuse and living conditions among other things. I was there for a year and I still have nightmares of being trapped or jailed and other triggers. Sucks. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. The comment of the day is from Modern Blade Smith. He writes, "Meat popsicles is great. I'll take it. I'm unsubbing if the next few vids don't say that. No worries Modern Blade Smith. You shall be called Meat Popsicle." Thanks for listening to Radio Reddit. Hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon for more videos like this. Share your thoughts about military schools and similar programs in the comments below.